One. The purpose of this webinar is to give you a high-level overview of .NET 8 and some of the highlights and benefits and why you might want to migrate to .NET 8. I'm also going to focus on the level of .NET 8 support for the ComponentOne stack of controls for each platform. I'll also point out some differences in updating to .NET 8 compared to previous versions of ComponentOne. And we'll even see how easy it is to create a new .NET 8 application or upgrade your existing one. If at any point you have questions, feel free to submit them, and then we'll look at them near the end. So .NET 8 offers improvements in performance, diagnostic integration, and language compatibility across the different .NET stacks. All of these areas give you reason to migrate to .NET 8. And this version of .NET 8 is an LTS version, as they say, which means long-term support. That means at least 3 years of support from Microsoft and at least 3 years of support from third-party vendors such as Meshes. With the 2023 V3 release of ComponentOne supports .NET 8 across most of our product line, including WinForms, WPF, WinUI, Maui, Blazor, and ASP.NET Core. Now next, let me walk through some of these highlights a bit with more detail, and we'll look at some of the areas that we can take advantage of .NET 8 with ComponentOne controls. So the biggest reason to migrate is always going to be performance. .NET 8 still uses the JIT just-in-time compiler as the previous versions, but Microsoft boasts that with .NET 8, it's now faster at processing code, and it lessens the process execution time. In addition, there's ARM64 performance improvements, and the garbage collector performance has improved by allowing you to dynamically adjust the memory limit. Now, this is most useful for cloud solutions where you may need to scale the resources based upon user demand. And also with performance, we see Blazor WebAssembly perform significantly faster thanks to the AOT, the ahead of time compiler improvements. These are yielding significant performance improvements for Blazor WebAssembly. Now, let me show you a side-by-side here of Blazor WebAssembly. So on the left here, I have our Flex Grid for Blazor running with .NET 8, and on the right, I have it running with .NET 6. So it may be difficult to see this exactly through your screen, but with .NET 8, the performance is noticeably faster on my end at scrolling and creating the cells compared to .NET 6. You can see there's a bit more lag. Now, this is our virtual mode demo. You don't necessarily even need to use data virtualization to see the performance differences between .NET 8 and .NET 6. And this is all thanks to the inherent performance that we gain from targeting .NET 8. And you'll also notice some other cell creation and performance enhancements in .NET 8. We find it to be anywhere from 2 to 8 times faster in .NET 8 compared to .NET 6. But Blazor actually has more improvements for .NET 8. Blazor is old, and it's a great technology for building web experiences in C# with no JavaScript required. It's fully integrated with ASP.NET Core for the backend, and it has a powerful UI component model. Our component library helps extend upon this with the form components by helping you display large data sets with the virtualization like I showed you with FlexGrid. Now for .NET 8, Microsoft has focused on getting the best of both the server and the client. So with .NET 8 now, Microsoft has made it possible to use Blazor alone for both the server and the client-side functionality. So previously, the server-side generated the HTML on the server using things like MVC and Razor pages, and Blazor was primarily just on the client. But now with .NET 8, you can use Blazor as a full web stack for all your web UI needs. The Blazor components can render HTML from the server while also getting full client-side activity within the same app. You can even switch approaches at runtime and perform refreshes from the server on just parts of the application. And using Blazor, this will also update the DOM without needing a full page refresh. Now to support this, there is a new project template in Visual Studio. So here are the benefits of using new Blazor web app project templates. You get the full web stack, web UI with Blazor server-side rendering, enhanced navigation and form handling, streaming, rendering. You can add client interactivity per page. You can also choose the render mode at runtime. And Microsoft has published plenty of tutorials on migrating your existing Blazor server or Blazor WebAssembly application to the new Blazor web app. And they do recommend using it for new Blazor development. But you can also continue to use the traditional Blazor WebAssembly or Blazor server project templates and just target .NET 8. Next, let's briefly touch upon Maui. With .NET 8, Maui has also improved, and as you may know, Maui is the successor to Xamarin for developing native Android and iOS apps using C#. And among other platforms like WinUI and macOS, uh, Maui, does a lot more than Xamarin. And now this single Maui codebase will also run on Android 34 and Apple's Xcode 15 with .NET 8. The big focus of Maui from Microsoft has been on quality and fixing bugs. But like every platform with .NET 8, Maui also benefits from inherent performance improvements, plus some specific Android and iOS related improvements that have been documented by Microsoft. So you can check out details on their side for that. On the ComponentOne side, our Maui Flex Grid control, we've added a new extension to our 2023 V3 installer that gives you a new project template called Grid App, our Maui Grid App, which is perfect for quickly getting started with our data grid for Maui and WinUI. And you can target .NET 7 and .NET 8. And like I said, we have that available for Maui and WinUI. So now let's talk about WinForms, which has been around for 20 years. And since it's been included with .NET Core and now .NET 5 through .NET 8, it's continuing to go strong as probably the most efficient way, but maybe not necessarily the most stylish way to develop native Windows applications. With .NET 6, they added full support for VB.NET. And since .NET 7, Microsoft has been focused on improving the look and feel of WinForms. And this includes things like fonts, rounded corners, the folder browser window, system icons, drag and drop functionality, and high DPI, among other things. And the goal is to better allow your applications to integrate with that Windows 11 look and feel. And .NET 8 also continues to improve the designer and VB.NET support from the previous versions. One of the biggest challenges with WinForms has always been the designer, ever since .NET 5, 6, 7, now 8. And this is because the designer architecture was completely rewritten by Microsoft to be based on .NET Runtime rather than .NET Framework. So it's been a journey for Microsoft and for us and probably all third-party control vendors as we're continuing to catch up and develop these rich design time experiences for .NET 6, 7, 8 compared to what we had for .NET Framework. For instance, in our 2023 V3 release, we've improved the chart designers for some of the special chart types like radar, pie, and tree map. So you can quickly build and customize the chart at design time. Now, you may be wondering which of our controls are currently supported in .NET 8. The basic list of the libraries is here on the right. The good news is that we have .NET 8 support and .NET 8-based libraries for every ComponentOne control that was previously supported in .NET 5, 6, and 7. With each version, we've been adding more and more. So migrating to .NET 8 from those versions is super easy if you're working with these ComponentOne UI controls. Now, we still have some missing from .NET 8, and these have been previously reported. And while we also plan to port them, they just have been postponed due to low priority and low adoption. So if you're using any of these controls, like Chart 3D, Filter Editor, Radial Menu, Win7 Pack, please let us know. We'd love to hear. And one major difference with our 2023 V3 release is that we now support multi-targeting within single packages. So we started to multi-target in these single packages, which means that the .NET 6 version is included in the package that starts with 8.0. That might be a little confusing for some people, but multi-targeting is a standard approach used by Microsoft with most packages. And it basically means that all the supported versions of .NET are within a single package. And usually that package number version is agnostic to the .NET version you target. However, with us trying to mix our old naming and the new naming, it might be a little confusing, especially if you're familiar with the old naming and the packaging structure. But we believe that by multi-targeting, it'll be easier for us to develop and distribute the controls and support more versions of .NET moving forward. Now, for .NET Framework users, this might be the most confusing because we've also multi-targeted and included the .NET Framework versions in the .NET 8 package as well. So multi-targeting means if you're using .NET Framework, the latest version is going to be in the 8.0 packages. But the tips are pretty simple. When you're adding a new package, the new procedure moving forward is that you're always just going to grab the latest version. No longer do you need to scroll down the list of the versions and try and find one in the middle, and then have to use our own 3 release a year versioning system to figure out which is the latest or which version do you need for .NET 4.8 or .NET 6. So you can always just grab the latest version and rely on Microsoft tooling to grab the dependencies and grab the version that you need based upon the target of your application. And then when you're updating, you can just rely on the Visual Studio NuGet Package Manager to know what package versions are supported. So let me show you a visual example of this. So here I have an application it's a WinForms application based on .NET Framework 4.8. It's referencing a bunch of controls from ComponentOne like FlexGrid, themes, ribbon. And this was previously updated to the 2023 V2 release, as you can see from the 20232 in the version number. Now, when I go to the NuGet Package Manager to update this, so Tools, NuGet Package Manager, Manage NuGet Packages for the solution, we can see that Visual Studio is going to find the latest versions that are supported by our project from NuGet.org. And you'll see here, some of these are updating to 8.0 packages, some of them are updating to 4.8 packages. So here we can just update all of them and click Update, and Visual Studio will do the work for us, grabbing all the dependencies that we need. So let's move on to WPF. So for WPF, similar to WinForms, we have a long list of controls available for .NET. We have a few remaining controls similar to WinForms, like Chart 3D, this time also rating and input panel. So please, if you're interested in using any of these controls for .NET 6, 7, or 8, please let us know if they're important for you. Now, regarding the multi-targeting issue, it does exist in WPF as well, meaning the .NET 6, .NET 7, .NET 8, they're all going to be in the same package. However, this will not be an issue for .NET Framework users because all of our .NET Framework WPF libraries use a different package name. Next, let me touch upon ASP.NET Core. Now, while Blazor leaves most of the web enhancements in .NET 8, there are several things for ASP.NET Core, including some Signal R enhancements and new features for minimal APIs and other things like authentication and native AOT. But for ComponentOne, the ASP.NET Core, we support all of our controls in .NET 8, and all of that support is included in the 6.0 packages. As you can see, if you went to NuGet.org, you can see when you click on a package, you can see the different versions that are referenced or that are targeted. So here you have .NET 6 and .NET 8. And I apologize if my face is not showing through, but we will continue on with the important stuff. And so far, I've only covered some of the highlights in .NET 8, but there's more, such as JSON, improvements to the JSON serialization and deserialization. JSON has become a standard format, and optimizing its management has been a priority for .NET. Reflection. Reflection in .NET 8 now supports function pointers, so we can more easily obtain the system type of objects. The AOT ahead of time compiling improvements. So as you may know, AOT allows you to build a self-contained version of your app that doesn't require a .NET runtime installed. And .NET 8 improves the AOT compiler optimization for Mac and Linux. Regarding diagnostics, with previous versions of .NET, you typically had to rely on third-party tools to help diagnose and collect user errors and runtime reports. Now .NET 8 has some built-in tools and support for new APIs to monitor your application's health and also help troubleshoot some issues. And one of my favorites is the C# hot reload. So if you're a XAML developer, you're familiar with the XAML hot reload, which lets you reload the application while it's debugging with updates. So now with .NET 8, this is extended to include C# modification of generic methods and types. And if you're like me, modifying one line of code at a time and constantly rebuilding, the hot reload is very helpful and it saves a ton of time. Now, regarding the level of support for .NET 8, as I mentioned, .NET 8 is a long-term support version of .NET, which means Microsoft commits to 3 years of support. The Meshes ComponentOne product line will support .NET 8 for at least 3 years as well. Microsoft will end .NET 7 support in May of next year, which is not an LTS version. The odd versions get just 1 year of support. And .NET 6, which was another 3-year LTS version, it was released in 2021, so it will end support by end of 2024. Now, with the Component One controls, we do plan to follow Microsoft's release schedule for .NET 6 support, as well as support for the next version like .NET 9. That is, if we even get .NET 9, who knows if they don't just skip to .NET 10. And that's just a Windows joke. So next I want to show you how to install .NET 8 as well as the Component One controls. The first part is really easy. To get .NET 8 in Visual Studio, all you have to do is update to 17.8. I have 17.82. I think that's the starting point. I don't know if it was 8.1, if it's just 17.8.2. Now for Component One, it's a little bit more work. So typically for Component One, what you do when you're first downloading Component One. Oh, and by the way, as you may have noticed, our company did get renamed from Grape City to Meshes last month, and this has impacted our installer configuration, which I'll get to. But typically, we recommend when you're installing for the first time to download from our website, and here you will get the web installer known as the C1 control panel. We recommend to install from this the first time. This way you get, common files like our licensing utility. You can also get the samples. And what you do, so if you're looking for a new version, so for example, I don't have Blazor installed on here. So what you do is you find the tile for the platform you're looking for, drop it down and select the version. So here, obviously, I'm going to select the latest version. And over on the right, there's some options available depending on what platform you're installing from. And then you click Proceed to install it. If you already have something installed, you don't need to re-download the control panel. You can just relaunch it, and the new versions will appear. So here I can look for a new version of the ASP.NET Core edition by simply dropping down the box and selecting the new version. Again, I can choose some options over there. Now, for the .NET 8 stuff, some of the platforms, we do give you the option to install different versions. For those platforms I just showed, it's all or nothing. But for WPF and WinForms, we do give you the option to choose if you want .NET 6, .NET 8. So when you are installing them for the first time, you'll see these options on the right. I already have them installed, so I'm clicking Repair just to show you these options over here to choose the different versions of .NET Framework and .NET 8 controls that you want. And what that's doing is it's giving you the binaries and the NuGet packages installed locally on your machine. And if you don't see the .NET 8 checkbox here, you might need to just re-download the C1 control panel from our website. Now, one of the changes of in the installation due to the company name change is the install path. So now all of our products are installed under Program Files /Meshes/Component1. So if you're having any issues updating, it could be because of the change in the install path. So my recommendation is just to uninstall, reinstall, that sort of thing. And that's pretty much it. Now, like I said, you get the NuGet packages are installed under Packages. Now, this is if you want to create like your own local NuGet repository, which you don't need to do. You can also just grab all of the NuGet files from NuGet.org. And like I showed you before, update from NuGet is really easy. So here I have a WinForms application that's using some controls. If I want to update this application to .NET 8, so right now this is a .NET 6 application. Updating to .NET 8 for WinForms and WPF for most of the platforms is really easy. All you have to do is open up the project properties and then switch the target framework from .NET 6 or 7 to .NET 8. And then the project will unload and reload and change a lot of things for you behind the scenes. And then for the third-party controls, like the Component1 controls, go to NuGet package manager for the project and search for the updates through there. Now, if you're referencing the DLLs directly, if you're referencing the DLLs directly, those do not change. The multi-targeting issue that I mentioned is specifically for NuGet packages. So if you're just referencing the DLLs, like for example, for WinForms, they install under the Program Files Meshes Component1 bin. You can find the .NET 8 DLLs in here. Okay. Now, lastly, let me show you how you can create a new .NET 8 application. It's really easy. So from Visual Studio, you're just going to create a new project, and you're going to see some of these project templates, like the new one that I mentioned, the Blazor web app, and also some of the ComponentOne new project templates are here. If you search for C1, we have the C1 Maui, we have C1 WPF, and these help just sort of get you started with all the project references added for you that you can start working with for both C# and VB in some cases. But here, let's just choose a WPF application, standard WPF application. On one of the next pages, you name it, and then you can choose the version of .NET 8 that you're going to target. It's that easy. That about wrapped up today's webinar. Let me know if you have any questions. So if you want to learn more about the ComponentOne product line, our new website, developer.meshes.com/ComponentOne. If you want to learn, I was only going to touch upon the brief or the top level highlights for .NET 8. If you want to learn a lot more, go to Microsoft for that. They have the best resources out there for .NET 8. I have a link up here, and we also have a QR code you can use to quickly jump to that link. And feel free to contact me if you have any questions after the webinar. And while I wait a few minutes for these questions to roll in, I also just want to highlight one other cool new feature we have 2023 V3 release, and that is our new transposed data grid that we support. It's essentially an extended feature of our popular Flex grid. We have this feature available in WPF, WinUI, Blazor, and Maui, and we do have plans to include this in WinForms next year. Now, this transpose grid is a simple behavior that you can add with just one line of XAML or Razor markup, and it flips the rows and columns to create a transpose grid where the column headers are going down the side and the rows continue to the right, and you get all the built-in data grid features like the sorting and the filtering and whatnot. Here we have it for WPF. All right, let's see if we have any questions. All right, I'd like to thank everybody for attending this webinar, and